Revealed, the sinister list of 13 cursed rules that haunt my new fire lookout job daily. Mia felt an electric thrill run through her as she climbed the winding road toward the lookout tower, but it quickly faded, replaced by a chilling anxiety. The sun hung low, casting monstrous shadows that twisted across the parched earth like hungry creatures. She had dreamed of solitude in the mountains, but the reality felt like stepping into a horror story. Once promised adventures awaited her, but now she couldn't shake the feeling that danger lurked behind the trees. What had she gotten herself into? As she settled into her cabin, she unfurled the map, the paper crackling in the thick silence. Locals had whispered warnings of the sinister list, the 13 cursed rules that governed the lookout, the strange superstitions that played on folklore. Just old tales, she muttered, trying to convince herself as she sipped on cold coffee. But as darkness approached, the air thickened, heavy with unspoken fears. A rustle outside made her freeze. She peered through the window, heart hammering against her ribs. A flicker of movement caught her eye, shadows shifting in the underbrush. Mia shook her head, willing her imagination to calm down. Rule number 1 echoed in her mind: never observe the forest after dark. A laugh spilled from her lips, but it caught in her throat as the wind howled like a beast, sending cold fingers down her spine. Just the wind, she whispered, trying to drown out the panic rising inside her. The shadows were merely branches, moving to the music of the breeze, right? But the whispers twisted through her mind, growing louder as the sun slipped from the sky. Were they real? Or was she losing herself in the isolation? The hairs on her arms stood as she recalled the townsfolk's knowing glances and warnings. They didn't tell her everything, but she felt their unsaid fears wrap around her. Suddenly, a soft rattle echoed through the night, reminiscent of a snake coiling. The tightness in her chest deepened. What if their folklore held truth? What if she wasn't truly alone up here? The radio crackled unexpectedly, shattering her thoughts. "Are you keeping the lookout secure?" the voice asked, familiar yet charged with hidden threats. She gripped the receiver tighter, breath quickening, fear igniting in her gut. What happened if she failed to heed the rules? Would the forest come for her, hungry for someone who dared defy the list? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mia's heart raced as she realized the shadows were not just figments of her imagination. She could feel the weight of the rules closing in, the darkness testing her resolve. Maybe the warnings had more than a hint of truth. Tension crackled in the air, every creak of the cabin amplifying her growing dread. She stepped closer to the window, straining to catch sight of whatever waited in the tree-line. The whispers melded with the rustling branches, creating a sinister melody that edged her towards madness. Sleep seemed impossible now, the prospect of nightmares haunted her. Then she spotted a silhouette darting just beyond her line of sight. Panic gripped her, a primal fear clawing at her insides. What wanted her attention? A terrible thought slithered through her mind: the forest had eyes, it was alive. Moving away from the window felt like defeat. Yet staying felt like walking into an invisible trap. In this race against time, no way could she escape the sinister truths lurking beneath the surface of the community she had tried to escape. As the night deepened, she feared the chilling question that loomed larger than her comfort: who or what would claim her next? Mia felt the shadows closing in, thick and suffocating. She retreated from the window, fighting against the instinct to flee. Each creak of the cabin felt like the whispers of the forest, urging her to break one of the cursed rules. The radio crackled again, shattering the fragile stillness. "Keep your eyes on the tree-line, Mia. Don't let it distract you," the voice warned, but was it reassurance or a mockery of her fear? She clutched the receiver like a lifeline, her palms clammy and cold. "You're only there to watch, just watch." With a shallow breath, she reminded herself of rule number 4, never let the darkness outsmart your mind. A fleeting thought of retreat crossed her mind, but she was here now. She needed to prove she could handle this job, show that she was brave. As she returned to the window, she peered out once more with dread curiosity. A silhouette darted again, and a cold shiver raced down her spine. It was larger than before, hulking and wrong against the backdrop of trees. She narrowed her eyes, heart pounding. What was it? The stories of shadowy creatures and vengeful spirits flooded back. All the warnings wrapped around her tighter. Was this what the locals feared? The wind shifted suddenly, a gust that howled like a furious animal. The silhouette vanished just as quickly as it had appeared, swallowed by the darkness. Mia's breath hitched, panic clawing its way back up as she tried to convince herself that there was nothing out there. She needed to focus. But the radio crackled again, more urgent this time. "Mia. What do you see? Talk to me." But all she could hear was the pounding in her ears, the whispers beckoning her to join the darkness, to step into the woods and face what waited there. Then, the faintest echo of laughter drifted through the trees. A sound so wrong, so unnatural, it sent a jolt through her. This wasn't just a prank, this was a challenge. She couldn't help but feel like she was dancing on the edge of a cliff, one misstep away from falling into a chasm of despair. The shadows flickered at the edges of her vision again, and Mia grappled with the urge to look away. The impulse to run was almost overwhelming. But above all else, she remembered the townsfolk's final warning: to gaze into the dark without fear was to invite it in. What kind of darkness would she let into her heart? A sudden crash from below sent her stumbling back. "Don't," she whispered fiercely, a mantra against the rising tide of terror. Rule number 6, never investigate strange sounds at night. But it felt too late. The forest called her name, the laughter undulating through the night, mocking her resolve. Taking a deep breath, Mia shifted her grip on the radio. She wasn't going to be a victim. With determination, she grabbed a flashlight and hesitated, the weight of her decision crashing down on her. Whether she stepped into the dark or stayed, she sensed the impending choice would reveal a truth far worse than the forest itself. Her heart raced faster than her thoughts could keep up. The call of the darkness had grown louder, intoxicating. She had to know what lurked beyond the stillness. Every rule she read swirled in her mind as she opened the door. Outside, the chill wrapped around her, and a sudden realization gripped her: the forest wasn't just watching, it was waiting. She had no idea what it wanted from her and how far it would go to claim her. As she stepped forward into the night, the shadows danced around her, eager and hungry. What if she was already too late? What kind of darkness had she unleashed? The question hung heavy in the air, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm, beckoning her to take the next step into the unknown. Would she be brave enough to face it? Mia's feet barely touched the ground as she stepped away from the welcoming light of the cabin. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, to slam the door shut and ignore the madness that whispered her name. But she couldn't turn back now. The shadows seemed to beckon, swirling like thick smoke, tangled up with the laughter that danced through the trees. With the flashlight slicing a thin beam into the dark, she tried to shake off the dread clinging to her. The woods loomed like a cathedral of horrors, each branch and bush hiding potential doom. She moved cautiously, ears straining for any sound beyond the rustling leaves. The laughter that had drawn her out was now gone, snuffed out like a candle. "Mia. Talk to me." The voice on the radio jolted her, raw and frantic. She felt a rush of reassurance, but it faded fast under the weight of her fear. What if she didn't answer? What if they thought she was lost already? Gathering her resolve, she pressed the button. "I'm outside. I stay put. Whatever you do, don't lose the light." The urgency in the voice sent ripples of panic through her spine. Glancing around, she felt the tree lean constricting, as if it were inching closer, narrowing her options. It was only her and the flashlight now. The vastness of the forest morphed into an oppressive force, and the laughter echoed again, this time more sinister, reverberating around her like a siren-esque call. Then she saw it, a larger silhouette still, lurking just at the edge of the beam. Mia's breath caught in her throat. The shape seemed to shift and ripple, a grotesque mannequin twisted at unnatural angles. She could make out long limbs, fingers like branches. Chilled, she stepped back, nearly losing her footing. Could this be the thing that the townsfolk warned about? Mia! Get back inside. The urgency in the voice made her heart race faster. It was a tether to sanity, a lifeline to cling to as dread threatened to drag her under. Wait, I see. The radio cut off suddenly, swallowed by static. Panic surged like icy water, constricting her chest. This was a game of survival now, and the rules were changing. She aimed the flashlight, praying that it would repel whatever loomed in the darkness. But what she shone it on made her stomach twist. Nothing was there. Just trees swaying in the wind, as though mocking her belief that she was ever in control. With a sudden burst of courage, Mia took a step forward. Show yourself. The words tasted bitter in her mouth, daring the darkness, challenging whatever was hiding in the gloom. The shadows shifted again, and without warning, the cold enveloped her. It was biting, cutting through her jacket like ice. It was more than just the chill of the night. It felt like something was leaching warmth from her very bones. The forest seemed to sigh, a deep groan echoing in the stillness. She could hear it now, breathless whispers all around her, just out of reach. They called her name, beckoning her deeper into the woods. Mia squeezed her eyes shut, trying to drown it all out. But it only grew louder, rising to a crescendo. Mia, the familiarity was unnerving. But who was calling her? The people from town? The trees themselves? She had to find out. It was a choice, and power rippled through the uncertainty. As she took a steadying breath, bright light beckoned in her peripheral vision. She turned her head sharply, the flashlight flickering, revealing what looked like a narrow path. A way deeper into the forest, or perhaps escape from this nightmare. The whispers silenced, anticipation crackled in the air. Mia hesitated, unsure of the next move. What lay ahead on this path? Nothing felt certain anymore. What would she discover if she chose to walk that line? Or would the shadows claim her first? One step in the dark could change everything. Would she dare take it? Mia's heart hammered in her chest. The path shimmered like a fleeting promise in the darkness. She didn't know why she felt the urge to follow it, but it called to her with an undeniable pull. With her flashlight flickering once more, she stepped onto the path. The ground beneath her was uneven, roots snaking up like skeletal fingers trying to hold her back. Each step was a battle against her rising anxiety. Branches snapped and crackled overhead, a chorus of warnings that lived and breathed within the woods. Mia! Are you there? The voice crackled through the radio again, startling her. She fumbled it, nearly dropping it into the underbrush. I'm here. I think I found a path. She blurted out. Get back. Don't wander off. Stay in the light. The last word echoed like a siren through her mind. Stay in the light. But a deeper instinct drove her forward, and the darkness thrummed with a life of its own. What lay ahead? Stepping further, the path narrowed, flanked by thick trees that seemed to lean in, their bark twisted as if in pain. Shadows darted in her periphery. Was it just her imagination? A fleeting movement each time she swung the flashlight, revealing only darkness where things should be. Then she heard it, the laughter again. Not joyous, but chilling, like 100 ghosts mocking her with their glee. She could almost see them flitting through the trees, just out of sight. Mia, please. Come back. The panic in the voice shook her, but the laughter drowned it out, wrapping her in a cocoon of unease. Mia. She picked up her pace. She had to know what was ahead. The trees closed in, gnarly arms reaching out as if desperate to ensnare her. Something coiled in her gut, and the whispers returned, now more insistent, a symphony of seduction and dread. As she rounded a bend, the trees parted, revealing a clearing illuminated by an otherworldly glow. Mia gasped. There in the center lay an ancient stone altar, slick with wet moss. Symbols carved into its surface pulsed faintly, casting eerie patterns on the ground around it. The laughter swelled, growing cruel. It surrounded her, a buzzing storm of disdain. Mia. Get out of there. The radio screeched, but she was transfixed by the altar. It throbbed softly, calling to her as if it held secrets she needed to know. Step by step, she edged closer, the cold crawling beneath her skin. As she extended her trembling hand to touch the altar, she felt the air grow thick, choking her, suffocating her. Mia. The voice screamed again, desperate yet distant. But as her fingers brushed the stone, a shockwave coursed through her. The symbols flared bright fierce, blinding light engulfing her world. And then, the forest erupted around her. Twisting limbs fused into grotesque shapes, faces emerging from bark, their mouths stretching open in silent screams. Panic surged as Mia stumbled back. What are you? She croaked, heart racing. The shadows laughed louder, mocking her as they converged. She turned to flee, but the path had vanished, swallowed by darkness. Help me! She yelled into the void, but the laughter only deepened, washing over her like a wave of despair. The darkness closed in, suffocating. Would she be lost forever? Follow the rules, they whispered, echoing in her mind, sending chills down her spine. What rules? Each rule felt vital, like a lifeline she needed. But just then, a deeper whisper broke through, sending ice through her veins. You don't remember, do you? Mia's mind raced. What was it that she forgot? The shadows pressed closer, and she had to find the truth. She just had to. But could she survive long enough to uncover it? With shadows swirling, Mia pressed forward into the dark, desperate for answers but terrified of what she might find. What rules would be revealed, and could she hold on to her sanity while facing them? Mia's breath came in ragged gasps, the weight of the darkness wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. The shadows danced and twisted, but amidst the fear, a strange clarity began to emerge. As the laughter subsided into a whisper, her mind echoed with fragmented fragments, phrases she grasped at. Find the rules. The haunting voice flitted through her thoughts again. What rules? She stumbled through the grotesque landscape that had consumed the familiar trees. The air was thick with tension, her heart racing, pounding a rapid rhythm of dread. It felt like the trees were watching, their jagged faces eager for her downfall. Suddenly, something spun out of the shadows, a scrap of paper. Mia's hand snatched it without thought, the momentary brightness of her flashlight illuminating the grim text, Rule 1, do not stray from the path. Her mind reeled. She had broken a rule. What other sinister mandates lay hidden in this forest of despair? Please help me, she muttered. Was she talking to herself or to the trembling radio at her hip? She pressed the button again. Is anyone there? Silence swallowed her words, and panic threatened to choke her once more. Should she run, or should she uncover more? The flickering beam guided her eyes down, revealing more wrinkled edges of ancient, cursed rules glaring up like the watchful eyes of a predator. She took another breath, steadier this time. Rule 2, never answer the whispers. Mia's skin prickled. The voices, the laughter, it had all betrayed the fragility of her sanity. She strained her ears against the enveloping silence, heart hammering at the distant echoes of laughter. Did they know? Did they remember? Stay in the light, she murmured, though the light was growing dim. With renewed determination, she trudged deeper into the cursed darkness, her pulse quickening. The air crackled with unspoken dread, and a cold sweat broke on her brow. A fleeting shadow moved to her right, she swung the flashlight again. Nothing. Only deep, oppressive shadows. Heart pounding, she pored over every horrible thought she'd begun to associate with her surroundings. What were the other rules? She questioned urgently, flipping the paper back over, letting her flashlight shine on the next phrase. Rule 3, do not trust the shapes in the dark. It sent chills skating down her spine, vividly resonating with the figures of horror lurking at the edge of her vision. Shapes flickered but never fully formed. They hovered just beyond her light, teasing, taunting, and whispering promises of what could come if she would only trust them. Her nails dug into the paper as she hurried to read Rule 4, if you see a face in the wood, turn away. Mia cursed under her breath. She had seen them. Agonizing faces howling from twisted bark. And she hadn't turned away, she had leaned closer. Each discovery felt like a nail in a coffin sealing her destiny. She turned once more, expecting to see those ghastly visages. All that stared back were shadows swirling, shifting, condensing into shapes. But somehow, they bore the semblance of people she had lost, a ghostly parade of those she loved, haunting her, reminding her of the hopeless, unending cycle of torment. Mia, they whispered, a chilling echo that rippled through the air. She fought to touch the next rule, fearing each letter as she unfolded it tremblingly. Rule 5, the altar must be respected. Respect? What did that mean? Her mind raced. The altar, if she had touched it improperly, then what hope did she have? As she skimmed the rest of the rules, an ominous thought crossed her mind. If the rules were all tied to her fate, then where was her escape? The darkness thickened, filling with expectations that nearly suffocated her. The laughter returned, swirling around with the wind and branches, now clearer, more defined. Come play with us, Mia. Desperation took hold, she sprinted forward, but the forest morphed around her, paths churning, the light flickering out. Just as she neared what felt like safety, everything fell silent, her flashlight dying. In that breath-stealing moment, as she was left standing in the pitch black, a truth gripped her heart. You don't remember, do you? Opening her eyes wide, she felt it again, another whisper rising from the suffocating gloom. One last rule echoed through the stillness, Rule 13, once inside, never assume you can leave. As an icy hand closed around her wrist, the truth of that chilling command settling in her bones, Mia gave one last scream that was swallowed whole by the darkness. What price would she pay to restore her memories and escape this nightmare? Mia's pulse thundered in her ears, like a drum signaling her end. The cold grip on her wrist tightened, fingers that felt more like the roots of the damned than any human touch. She spun to escape, but the forest shifted once again, branches clutching at her limbs, as if the very trees conspired against her. Let go! She cried out, but the laughter returned, now a cacophony of mocking voices that filled her mind. The icy fingers retreated, leaving behind a tingling chill that raced through her body. Taking a trembling breath, Mia forced herself to focus. She had to remember. The altar. What was it? Was it a place? A ritual? A price to be paid? Stumbling forward, she half ran, half tripped, her remaining light flaring sporadically, barely illuminating the path ahead. Her heart ached with regret as each rule echoed ominously in her mind. She had trusted the whispers. She had broken their sacred covenant. Now, dread settled deep within her, festering like a wound with salt poured over it. Another scrap of paper flitted to the ground, a laugh, was it her own? Slipped through her lips. You couldn't have known, the darkness taunted her. The rustling leaves twisted into a voice, familiar yet tainted. Look around, Mia. What do you see? Are they truly lost? Or are they just waiting? Her breath hitched. They? Shadows shifted close by, they were watching her. The figures swirling beyond the edges of her flashlight glare, humanoid, sorrowful, stirred emotion. The fleeting glimpses of her loved ones, the loss of each rendering her heart heavier. Rounding a tree, her foot caught on a root, sending her sprawling onto cold, damp earth. She pushed herself up, dirt caking her palms. That's when she spied it, a crumbling pedestal, covered in vines and darkness. The altar. Her eyes widened. Is this it? The altar? She whispered, as if speaking its name would awaken its latent power. She approached with trepidation, every instinct screaming at her to stop. But the allure was too strong, a magnetic pull toward the unknown. Respect the altar, she muttered, recalling the fifth rule like a talisman. Kneeling before it, she brushed away the layers of dirt, revealing intricate carvings, symbols that made her skin prickle. They spoke of ancient sacrifices, of offerings made to appease the forest's dread spirits. Do it, the wind hissed, as if coaxing her. What do I need to do? The whispering shadows seemed to draw closer, their features morphing into desperate expressions. A face broke through, her mother's eyes wide, terrified. Help us, no. Mia gripped her hair, disbelief clashing with sorrow. It's not real. But the beckoning was so real. She felt a desperate desire claw at her chest. Before she could think better of it, she pressed her palm against the altar, the rough texture sending jolts through her very being. The ground trembled beneath her. A deep rumble echoed, and dirt shifted around her as twisted roots began to emerge, wrapping around her ankles. Fear coiling tightly in her stomach, she gasped. What have I done? Respect is given through sacrifice, the whispers harmonized, a haunting melody that resonated through the trees, shaking leaves from their branches. The air thickened with a sense of impending doom. Mia, a soft voice filtered through, and her vision dulled, contorted shapes merging into one twisted silhouette that took on the guise of her brother. Why didn't you come find us? His eyes glinted, forgiveness tainted by accusation. Please, but the earth surged, and she was pulled deeper into the darkness with every plea she uttered. Desperation clawed at her throat. All her memories, her fears, her regrets, the price demanded was steep and unyielding. There was an unseen trade she hadn't comprehended. In a flash of clarity, she remembered one last rule, one that crawled into her mind like a worm burrowing into flesh. Rule 7, blood is the bond. No. I won but it was too late. The altar pulsed beneath her hand, and a surge of light erupted, followed by deafening silence. Something deep within her surged, a threshold waiting to be crossed. Mia stood frozen, realizing she had awakened something insatiable, alive only in their hunger for both freedom and her blood. What will be your sacrifice, Mia? The question echoed ominously, reverberating through the creeping darkness, as the ground shattered under her feet, and with that, the forest began to close in, promising discoveries that would hell-bent on laying bare her darkest truths. Would she succumb to their demands, her past, her present, everything she once loved, or find the courage to shatter the chains binding her? In a desperate moment, Mia's scream pierced the veil of ominous silence, I want to be your pawn. But the answer was the only thing now hiding from her grasp, lost within the darkness enveloping her. As the whispers faded into the air, she knew whatever lay ahead would come with a cost she hadn't yet fathomed. What was the price of freedom? Would it cost her more than just herself? The ground shook violently, the shadows growing thicker around Mia as the altar pulsed beneath her touch. Panic surged through her, overwhelming her senses. She yanked her hand away, but the roots that had taken hold of her ankles tightened, anchoring her in place. The whispers, once a distant cacophony, transformed into a maddening clarity that clawed at her mind. Sacrifice, they chanted, their voices weaving through the trees like smoke. What will you pay? Blood is the bond. Mia's heart raced, the familiar faces of her loved ones flickering before her like candlelight in a storm. No. I can't. She screamed. Each word was swallowed by the darkness wrapping around her. The forest felt alive, hungry, and she was its next meal. The altar shimmered as if responding to her refusal, thrumming with a sinister energy. Mia stumbled backward, the roots releasing her just long enough for her to see a glint in the dirt. A dagger, buried hilt deep in the earth, stained and old, waiting. Fear coursed through her as the realization hit. Was this her only option? Was she really meant to take this blade and draw the dark offering? She was paralyzed with uncertainty, a wild tempest of thoughts converging into a single, desperate question: could sacrificing her blood set them free, or would it just bind her to this horror forever? Do it. Honor your kin. The shadows urged, their voices swirling and rising like dark, hungry birds. No, she shook her head violently, tears streaking her cheeks. I'll find another way. I won't give in to this. The air thickened, the temperature dropping suddenly, turning her breath into icy mist. The shadows recoiled for an instant, as if her defiance had momentarily pushed them back, but their figures quickly reformed, creeping closer. Mia, her brother's voice echoed once more, soft and inviting. Help us, we need you. But this time, instead of comfort, it felt like a venom crawling beneath her skin, gnawing at her resolve. Stay away from me. She cried, collapsing to the ground. She clawed against the earth, dirt slipping through her fingers like time itself. A deep rumble emanated from the altar, the ground shaking violently again, extremities of roots snaking toward her as dark tendrils pulsed beneath the surface. Visions of betrayal and loss danced around her mind like a twisted masquerade of family long lost, silenced voices begging for justice. Then, from the depths of her frantically racing thoughts, a flicker of hope emerged. The rules. There were options carved into the stones at the foot of the altar, a language she barely understood when she had first arrived, but one that now seemed to shine with meaning. Release. Deny. Mia muttered to herself, shaking off the encroaching despair. I can change the rules. I can rewrite them. With a renewed sense of determination, she rose to her feet, feeling the shift of energy as she stood defiant. Stepping closer to the altar, she faced it with a newfound ferocity. I respect this place, but I'm no one's offering. I won't bind myself to the shadows. Suddenly, the dagger pulsed as though resonating with her words, a vibrating energy that echoed deep within her chest. It called to her like a siren, promising power and knowledge if only she would claim it. Are you willing to fight? The whispers hissed, their tones shifting from coaxing to menacing. What price will you pay for freedom? Every inch of her screamed to run, but she felt a growing fire within. Would she dare take the dagger? Could it be her salvation or merely a deeper descent into darkness? The roots shifted beneath her, the forest murmuring its warning of impending doom, and she knew she had mere moments to make a choice. Mia, the dark chorus rolled across the air, wrapping her in its chilling embrace. Make your sacrifice, for the bond runs deeper than blood. As the night sky erupted with starlight, cold and distant, Mia's pulse quickened. Shadows began to swirl around her, tightening their grasp with every breath she took. Show me, she whispered, heart racing. Show me what this means. What do I truly have to lose? The dagger glimmered ominously, and as she reached for it, the forest trembled, and the true nature of her challenge loomed large on the horizon. What would she unleash if she accepted this dark invitation? What truths lay hidden within the sacrificial shadows? With her hand trembling over the blade, the answer was closer than she ever anticipated. Mia's fingers hovered over the dagger, an ancient truth pulsing underneath her touch. The ice-cold metal felt alive, its dark history etched into her skin. Behind her, the shadows writhed, twisting into grotesque shapes that beckoned her to surrender. Make your choice, Mia. The whispers surged, crashing like waves against her resolve. Claim your destiny. But what destiny awaited her? The air thickened with dread as she weighed the dagger's promise against the horror that surrounded her. Could she refuse to become part of their nightmare? In a heartbeat, Mia's decision solidified. No! She shouted, voice tearing through the shadows, raw and defiant. I won't be your pawn. The dagger pulsed again, almost in protest, and the ground trembled. Roots shot up like snakes, binding her feet in place. "You don't understand," they hissed. "You can't escape the bond." Fear twisted in her gut. She tore her gaze from the glistening blade, scanning the darkness for any sign that there might be another way. In the depths of that suffocating gloom, a pair of eyes glowed, familiar yet unnatural. "Mia," they whispered, each syllable dripping with despair. It was her mother. The figure shimmered like mist, a blend of warmth and sorrow. "You can save us," it begged, reaching out with a hand that flickered like a candle. "Embrace the sacrifice." "No!" Mia screamed, the scream echoing through the twisted trees like a banshee's wail. "You're not my mother. You're a lie." As her defiance reverberated, a crack splintered through the ground. The altar erupted in a flash of dark light, the roots recoiling as if repelled by her energy. The shadows shrieked, an outrage that sent chills cascading down her spine. Mia seized the moment, propelling herself away from the altar, her heart pounding like a frantic drum in her chest. She sprinted through the thickening darkness, eyes darting, the forest alive with fury. Branches snagged at her clothes, a tapestry of terror closing in around her. She felt their icy fingers grazing her skin, desperate to pull her back into the abyss. Her pulse raced, breaths came fast and shallow. In her mind, horror played out like the frames of a broken film, visions of her brother, her father, of a family torn apart by betrayal. But she couldn't focus on that now. The weight of their pleas fueled her legs, propelling her deeper into the forest. "Mia! Mia!" The haunting chorus echoed behind her, stranded in the depths of that cursed altar, but she refused to turn back. The dagger throbbed in the darkness, a steady beat that taunted her, reminding her of its power. Suddenly, from the thick underbrush, something lunged at her. A hulking figure, part shadow, part man, towered above, eyes burning like coal. "Where do you think you're going?" it growled, voice dripping with menace. Mia skidded to a halt, panic washing over her. She could feel its breath, hot and fetid, the embodiment of terror itself. The urge to turn and fight surged within her, but the creeping roots began to unfurl behind her, re-establishing their hold like snakes springing back to life. "Make the offering," it bellowed, reaching out a shadowy hand as if to snatch her spirit from within. "Join us or be consumed." With no time left, an electric shock of realization surged through her. The rules. The ones she had glimpsed at the altar. Mia could feel them, clawing at her thoughts, one in particular shining brighter than the rest. "Deny the curse," she shouted, each word cracking the air like an explosion. "I refuse to be a sacrifice." A shockwave erupted, sending the creature back, staggering away as the ground erupted beneath it. For a moment, she felt the pull of freedom, echoes of the abyss retreating. But even as she felt herself detached from the darkness, she knew it was far from over. The whispers screamed, the roots coiled tighter, and from the depths of the night, shadows prepared for one last attempt. The forest quaked, and Mia felt the essence of the altar scream in rage. But what would come next? Would she break free, or would they envelop her in their eternal grasp? Shadows surged around her as the ground rumbled ominously. Was there truly a way to escape, or was she already too late? The answer lingered just out of reach. The shadows screamed for vengeance, wrapping around Mia like a suffocating shroud. She could feel their icy tendrils creeping into her mind, fraying her nerves. Panic quickened her breath. Ahead, the darkness twisted, a wall of menace closing in. "Run!" she screamed at herself. With every ounce of her being, she propelled forward, the forest breathing down her neck. Each step felt like a stampede of ghosts, echoing through her veins as if the very trees were alive with grotesque shadows desperate to reclaim her. The figure loomed behind her, its massive form parting the shadows like a predator through grass. Though she could hardly look back, the fear it instilled clung to her, hot and suffocating. "Your defiance will only lead to your doom, Mia." It howled, laughter reverberating through the trunks like thunder. Mia forced herself not to turn, fighting against the terror gripping her. She focused on the path ahead, eyes searching for anything familiar. She needed the semblance of safety, the clearing where she and her family had once picnicked, the old oak tree that used to sway in the wind. They felt like distant memories, fading fast in the swirling darkness. Suddenly, a flicker caught her attention. A low light shimmered between two gnarly trees. Hope ignited, urging her to dash toward it. Was it a way out? Or was it another trap set by the insatiable darkness? Pushing doubt away, she propelled her legs forward, feeling the roots snatch at her ankles keen with desperation. The closer she got, the more the glow pulsed, a heartbeat against the dark, drawing her closer. It felt painfully familiar, like the dagger had turned warm in the presence of this light. But as she neared, the atmosphere shifted, cycling through a spectrum of emotions, agony, rage, and insatiable hunger. Forking limbs brushed against her, clawed as they swiped for her. She yelped, dodging a grasping branch, the pain of old wounds reigniting in her chest. But the vision of the light grew closer, crystalline and radiant. What was waiting for her there? Breaking past the final barrier of trees, she stumbled into the clearing filled with low fog, the ground spongy and alive. In the center stood a pedestal. Positioned precariously atop was the dagger, the very blade she had rejected. But surrounding it lay crumpled figures draped in shadow, their faces twisted in haunting agony. Mia, they whispered, voices weaving through the space, each syllable a gasp of suffering and yearning. Join us, be whole again. Her heart plummeted. This place, it was a trap, just as the figure had warned. Their longing echoed like a siren song, offering what she feared most: closure, peace, the family she had lost. No! She cried, staggering back, but the voices grew insistent. You don't understand. The offering must be made. You can't escape your fate. Mia shook her head violently, hair whipping around like a frantic dance. I want tea. The words burst from her, raw and desperate. I refuse. She caught a glimpse of her own reflection in the blade, shattered and distorted. The urge to plunge into the darkness tickled at her mind, urging her to follow their pleas, to let the darkness wrap her in a familiar embrace once more. Yet, she didn't just see herself, she saw her brother, her father, faces contorted in fright. They hadn't surrendered. The fatigue of survival pulsed through her, and with each heartbeat, the whispers grew more frantic. Suddenly, with an explosion of force, the ground trembled violently around her. The clearing erupted, roots and earth breaking free in chaotic upheaval. And then silence followed, a deafening stillness that felt more ominous than the chaos that had come before. In that moment, a single question loomed larger than the dark itself: what would she truly sacrifice to escape this terrifying cycle? As she stood at a crossroads between the light and the beckoning darkness, the dagger trembled on its pedestal, waiting. How much longer could she resist? The shadows stirred, hungry for a choice. Would she embrace or obliterate her destiny? The weight of the unanswered lingered heavy in the air, shrouding her in a chilling uncertainty. Mia's heart raced, fear and determination waging war within her. She could feel the forest closing in, its whispers caressing her mind like a soft, sickly sweet temptation. But she wouldn't yield. Not now. Gathering every ounce of strength, Mia stepped forward. Each inch felt like a battle against the pull of sorrow swirling around her. The figures at the edge of the clearing shifted and beckoned, tormented souls trapped between worlds. But she wouldn't let their despair sink its claws into her. As violent tremors gripped the earth, Mia squeezed her eyes shut, focusing on the warmth of defiance burning within. I refuse. She shouted into the void, voice shaking but resolute. I want to become another offering. Suddenly a blinding flash of light erupted from the dagger. It illuminated the clearing, casting away the shadows that darted ravenously toward her. An ancient energy pulsated from the blade, its power singing like 1,000 voices, urging her to claim it, but she knew the cost. "Join us," the voices pleaded once more, each whisper echoing her deepest fears, her unresolved grief. "No!" Mia screamed, voice tearing through the air, refusing the call of the past. "You are not my family. You can't hold me here." As she opened her eyes, the blinding light from the dagger grew, arching over the altar and scattering the shadows. The air shimmered with palpable energy, dark remnants fleeing as Mia's resolve solidified. She grasped the truth: the only way to break the cycle, to free those she loved, was to embrace her own strength and confront the darkness rather than submit to it. She blinked, images cascading through her mind, memories of happiness, of laughter shared under the sun, blending with the sorrow of their loss. "I will honor you, but I will not be lost to you," she cried, voice high and defiant. With the words slamming against her chest, Mia rushed toward the pedestal where the dagger glimmered with enticing allure. She knew it held power, but more importantly, it represented a choice. Her fingertips grazed the cool hilt, but she didn't lift it just yet. Instead, she knelt beside the altar, grounding herself in the moment. "I choose to break this curse," she whispered, breath hitching. "I choose love over fear." The ground shuddered. The shadows recoiled, gathering in a swirling tempest. Overhead, the sky cracked with energy, allowing shafts of light to pierce through the darkness, illuminating faces that had haunted her. For the first time, she sensed pain dissolve into a smile among the spectral forms, her mother and father nodding with pride, urging her forward. Mia felt warmth blooming in her chest, a resolve stronger than despair. She fully understood the power of the dagger and her own spirit. "I will fight for every fractured memory, every lost whisper. I will not allow you to claim me or my family." With an explosive surge of strength, she seized the dagger, that blade pulsing with the heartbeat of ancient magic. The shadows shrieked in furious protest, but their cries fell silent as she lifted the weapon high above her head, channeling her tears, her sorrow, her triumph. "Let the bond of blood be severed," she cried, thrusting the blade into the earth. "Let love shatter this veil of darkness." As the dagger plunged into the soil, light erupted from the altar, consuming the clearing in radiant energy. Shadows screamed in anger as the ground shook violently, roots tearing away from the earth like dark tendrils losing their grip. Mia closed her eyes against the brilliance, praying for deliverance, praying her choice would shift the balance. The blinding light surrounded her, filling the void with warmth love carved from tears, and in that moment, she felt their presence embrace her. As the light grew brighter, she heard the whispers transform, merging sorrow into relief, darkness into liberation. "Thank you," echoed soft voices surrounding her, and in those words, she felt the weight of sacrifice finally lift. Mia's heart soared as everything around her began to dissolve, her parents' silhouettes vibrating with the energy of freedom. Voices entwined with love blossoming anew. She had chosen to claim her legacy, to honor them without becoming a prisoner of the shadows. Finally, the light swallowed the darkness, illuminating the path forward, her future, her independence, her home. And then everything went white. When Mia opened her eyes, she found herself standing before the lookout tower, grounded in reality once more. The sun broke over the horizon, spilling golden light across the forest, now calm and inviting. The whispers had receded, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves and vibrant songs of birds. She took a deep breath, filled with fresh air, heart steady and whole. No longer burdened by the weight of the past, she felt lighter, stronger, ready to face whatever came next. And as she turned to walk back toward the cabin, Mia glanced over her shoulder. The shadows had retreated, watching from a distance. But she had won the battle, and the forest breathed easily once more. "Goodbye," she whispered softly, knowing she didn't leave them behind. She had liberated herself. What was now ahead was filled with hope. This is your moment. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button so we can feed the algorithm and reach more fans like you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Mia's journey. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. Your support makes all the difference.